and the hope of every ordinary woman.
I rise, we rise.
Strength of a woman. Strength of a woman. Strength of a woman.
Together with Mary as a person, I also supervised many master students with her. Just to mention but a few: Milton Alwanga in 2002, who is now a lecturer in Jomo Kenyatta; David Bongo; Samuel Ngigi, who is a colleague now in IDS; Janet Gathua; and Francis Ngang. I hope, Francis, I can see you somewhere today. So, Mary has mentored us, has encouraged us, and as researcher has taught us a lot of skills. Mary research is quite unique because, unlike many of us who run for consulting or where the money is to do research in those areas, Mary will only do research that is of interest to her, of passion, and more importantly, that would build impact. Quite unique even in ideas. Mary could on several occasions even take loans from our saving circle called Chuna in order to finance her work when donors or other financiers didn't see value in it. How many of us would do that? From where I come from, you can only take a loan to buy a plot, right? But Mary would see value in research, especially when working with communities in Juakali Association. Again, Mary liked working in research where she's engaging with communities. We'll be seeing this a lot more as we go on with the program, as Mary continued to work with people in the informal sector throughout her career. Because of her uniqueness in research, many people would think that she is alone. I read in one of these recent publications Mary has done, is 2019, if you want to Google it, it's called A Lone Ranger, right? And I said, no wonder we were not understanding Mary very well. It's about her journey towards becoming a feminist geographer in Nairobi, Kenya, right? Looking at matters of gender, place, and culture. A very interesting article to read. As we celebrate Mary this afternoon, I got another quote from Mary that said, I paused my academic career in 2020. You know it, Mary, right? Is it not you? I was tired of competition, right? I was tired of lack of solidarity and reciprocity, or no long-term relationship. I was perturbed and said, now, Mary, I thought we had, but you will be telling us more about this as you give your lecture. And I said, Mary, we are in IDS, we cherish you. And if this relationship never appeared, be assured it's there. We, the family in IDS, welcome you now and even in the future as you start a new chapter in your career. On behalf of the IDS family, I wish you God's blessings, growth, and prosperity. Thank you for making IDS your home for the over 25 years. And we can only hope and look forward to our interaction and sharing as we go forward. Thank you for allowing us to celebrate you and this great work that you have done in this space, which we know sometimes may not be cited at home, but informing a lot of interventions and knowledge out there. I wish you the best in your endeavors. It has always been a pleasure working with you, and I can only pray that we continue with this relationship.
Permit me, friends, to begin with a personal reflection. My presence here is not entirely accidental, Mary. Dr. Mary and I are connected by an invisible thread woven through one of the world's most celebrated citadels of learning, Fitzwilliam College, the University of Cambridge. Although we belong to that historic college at different moments in time, we remain heirs to the same intellectual tradition, a tradition that has dominated intellectual development for over 900 years. It is therefore fitting that today we celebrate a scholar who has carried that tradition of intellectual courage into African scholarship. Dr. Kinyanjui has reminded us that knowledge need not always travel from north to south. Sometimes the most profound theories emerge from our markets, our communities, our cultures, and our everyday struggles as a people. Through her pioneering work on the Ubuntu economy, informal livelihoods, and African feminist thought, she has demonstrated that Africa is not merely a consumer of ideas, it is also a producer of ideas worthy of global attention. She has consistently challenged us to rethink development, to humanize economics, and to restore dignity to indigenous ways of knowing. Her scholarship has therefore been intellectually rigorous and morally compassionate. There is an old academic saying, friends, that universities are not sustained not only by buildings and budgets, but by the women and the men who devote their lives to expanding the frontiers of knowledge. Dr. Kinyanjui belongs to that distinguished fraternity of scholars whose influence extends far beyond lecture rooms, whether as a researcher, a mentor, a public intellectual, international visiting scholar, or founder of new platforms for public engagement. She has exemplified the highest ideals of scholarship in the service of society. Allow me, in a very special way, friends, to commend the Institute for Development Studies for institutionalizing this culture of celebrating scholars during their lifetime. Very important, Professor Kamau. Universities too often become diligent custodians of memorials after great scholars have departed us. Yet, there is equal wisdom in honoring intellectual excellence while its voice is still audible, while its counsel is still available, and while younger generations can still learn directly from those who have walked before them. IDS has given us an excellent example. May this noble tradition continue to flourish and inspire other academic units across our university in order to honor people who have contributed, making this institution what it was meant to be, a great university. Finally, Dr. Kinyanjui, thank you for bringing us together. It only takes the strength of a woman, if I may echo the words of our students, to bring us together. Every distinguished scholar eventually leaves behind two legacies. One is written in books and journal articles. The other is written in the lives that they touch, the minds they are working, and the institutions they strengthen. Today, we celebrate both in Dr. Mary Kinyanjui. We now look forward with a great anticipation to listening to your reflections. Reflections which I believe born of a lifetime of scholarship, intellectual courage, and an unwavering commitment to the African tradition.
For me, I see a great researcher and a mentor, but also somebody who is disruptive in terms of hearing your story. So we celebrate you, and it's good that you know that the University of Nairobi really appreciates your contribution to this community. I'm also very privileged to join this event because by a very strange coincidence, nowadays I say that I'm afraid of IDS, and I've become afraid of IDS through two great people, Professor Kamau and Pascaline. I think those are the two people who have brought me quite close to IDS. But there's something that I have also picked. You know, where I come from, the Department of Biological Sciences, we do not do this. And really, you know, Professor Obongi, you have mentioned this, that it is good to celebrate our people, you know, when they are still alive. And I think when something happens towards the end of our life, we rush there, but we never appreciated them when they were part of our team. So, Prof. Kamau, this is a lesson I have picked from IDS. Now, with those remarks, allow me now to read the remarks by the Deputy Vice Chancellor in charge of research, innovation and enterprise during this valedictory ceremony in honor of Dr. Njeri Kinyanjui. So, members of the university management, our chief guest, Dr. Kinyanjui, our director, Institute for Development Studies, Professor Kamau, our dean, Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences, Professor Kenneth Obogi, chairpersons of departments, distinguished guests, and in a very special way to recognize the presence of my friend, Dr. Rose Ann Njiro. Good to see you. Colleagues, students, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is a great honor to join you as we celebrate the remarkable academic journey and enduring legacy of Dr. Njeri Kinyanjui. I commend the Institute for Development Studies for organizing this befitting tribute to a distinguished scholar whose work has significantly advanced research, informed public policy, and enriched the intellectual life of the University of Nairobi. And today is not simply about marking the end of an academic career. It is about celebrating a legacy of scholarship that demonstrates the transformative power of research. Universities exist to generate knowledge that addresses society's most pressing challenges, and Dr. Kinyanjui's career exemplifies this mission. Through her scholarship, she has consistently shown that research must extend beyond academic discourse to influence policy, empower communities, and contribute meaningfully to national development. Over more than 25 years of dedicated service, Dr. Kinyanjui has distinguished herself as an accomplished researcher, an inspiring teacher, and a committed mentor. And today I've just picked that Professor Kinyanjui is a child of Dr. Kinyanjui, of course, academically. So we celebrate this. So her pioneering work on Kenya's informal economy fundamentally reshaped how scholars and policymakers understand the role of small-scale enterprises in economic development. Dr. Kinyanjui's scholarship has also made important contributions to feminist studies and African-centered development thinking. Through her research, she amplified the voices of women, informal entrepreneurs, and marginalized communities, reminding us reminding us that sustainable development must be grounded in local realities and informed by African perspectives. More recently, her work has encouraged scholars to draw upon indigenous philosophies such as Utu and Ubuntu in reimagining more inclusive and people-centered models of development. These contributions have enriched academic discourse while offering practical insights for policy and practice. Equally significant has been Dr. Kinyanjui's contribution to building human capital. The true measure of an academic is not only the knowledge they produce, but also the people that they inspire. Throughout her career, she has mentored generations of students, and you can note that some of them are already professors, supervised emerging researchers, and nurtured young scholars who continue to advance knowledge in universities, research institutions, and development organizations. Her influence will therefore continue through the many lives that she has shaped and the ideas she has inspired. As the University of Nairobi strengthens its position as a leading research-intensive institution, scholars such as Dr. Kinyanjui remind us that excellence in research must be measured not only by publications, but also by societal impact. Our collective aspiration is to produce knowledge that informs public policy, supports innovation, promotes inclusive development, and contributes to achieving national, regional, and global development goals. Dr. Kinyanjui's career stands as a powerful example of this vision in practice. Although today marks her formal retirement from the University of Nairobi, it does not signal the end of her contribution to scholarship. Academic leadership extends well beyond institutional boundaries, and we remain confident that she will continue to influence research, mentor young academics, and contribute to national and international conversations on development, gender, entrepreneurship, and African-centered scholarship. On behalf of the University of Nairobi, I extend our deepest appreciation to Dr. Kinyanjui for her exceptional service, distinguished scholarship, and unwavering commitment to academic excellence. Your work, Dr. Kinyanjui, has strengthened this university, enriched public policy, empowered communities, and advanced the frontiers of African scholarship. Your legacy will continue to inspire future generations of researchers committed to producing knowledge that transform society. And as you begin this new chapter, we wish you good health, fulfillment, and continued success. May your wisdom and experience continue to guide and inspire the academic community for many years to come.
And one of the book with the most impact is Women in Urban Africa. And this book was published by Z Books. Now I think Z has been bought by Bloomsbury. But Women and Informal Economy in Urban Africa, when I read this book, it starts very well about these two women who are actually, one is like a mama mboga asking another woman, an Indian woman on top of a flat. You know, they're trading over hamburgers, you know, just centering women. And of course it goes on and sorry, let me control this. Hello? Yes, the previous one. And so the key contribution for this book, as I'm saying, it has received the most citations. It has reframed informal economies as central in Africa's urban life. And not just informal economies, women in African urban life. And she uses, of course, other case studies to develop this book, among others. But she shows women's agency despite marginalization. And one of her pet projects, of course, is the structural adjustment programs. Many of you were alive to see the impact of structural adjustment programs. And through this book, she joins debates in feminist geography, and I would really recommend that you all read that paper about her journey as a feminist geographer, urban studies, and through this, she's able to dismantle or challenge patriarchal assumptions of the city as a male space, and also the assumptions of women's passivity, that we are passive as women, and we are isolated to the private space, to the homes. Remember that quote by English people, that a women's place is in the kitchen, though I think African women never had a kitchen in the first place. We were in the marketplace. And so through this work, she moves, she brings to the debate about, by centering African women, and not just elite women, but of course the subaltern women in the city as very important agents. Next, Saina. The next book that is, I think it's been sold there, so you can get a copy from Nuria, Utu and Ubuntu Market Systems, and the Ubuntu business model. So the key contribution of this book is that Njeri introduces Utu Ubuntu ethics of reciprocity, of care. In feminist scholarship, we are very big on care ethics, caring, humanity, collective well-being, bringing them into market analysis. Think about it. When you think about markets, we just think about these competitive spaces. We never think about care and solidarity. But through her work, and actually not just through her work, through our lives, because that's the beauty. She looks at our lives and theorizes around African lives of subaltern people. So she challenges colonial and neoliberal binaries of formal versus informal, and she's going to talk about that, and especially in the marketplace, and introduces African social philosophies like Utu and Ubuntu in markets and business models. Next. And within also, she also has theorized on pain and resilience. Now these days very big on these NGOs, resilience, and she theorizes what she calls anthropane, the sweet sobs of women, published by Cambridge Scholars Publishing. And one of the things this book does is that it explores women's resilience in the face of anthropane, internal pain. And this is a pain, she says, that is inflicted by human systems. And this book is grounded in Gikuyu orature, womanism, and feminism. And this book explores African women's pain, which is not often acknowledged and is also not theorized. And I like that she uses a lot of Gikuyu, like Goshaya, how we make sense also of pain. So again, using our African realities to think African, even words, African language, African lives and philosophies. So, and through this, she has critiqued, of course, gender methodologies that portray women just as victims, and looks at everyday women's resilience and African women's resilience, and suffering, positioning African women as theorists of resilience. Through of you, if you're here, you're in a chama. Why don't we teach chamas in business school? Why don't we theorize around our business? If you go to most business schools, they are learning about the failure of, what do you call this company that collapsed? Nokia and Kodak, because they were unable to move to the next phase. And Skype now, because Skype disappeared. Do you remember? We are all on Zoom. Skype should have been one of the shareholders. So now, business school study all these as case studies. Why don't we study our people? And some of these VMAs that you've seen have transformed. Transcentually started like a chama. And the many women's chamas, and many women are here. You know what you have done with chamas. And that's through her work. She shows how she challenges neoliberal narratives that prioritize profit over people, and her work has joined global debates on economic models, offering African women's economic systems and practices, I would call them practices, as models for rethinking economic systems. VMAs, chamas, everybody's in a chama. Next. through also another book she has written, Wanjiko in Global Development, Everyday Women's Livelihoods in Kenya, which recenters the ordinary citizen, Wanjiko. The book challenges the dominant development paradigms that privilege elite voices instead of foreground in Wanjiko. As you know, Wanjiko is the caricature, a metaphor for the everyday Kenyan woman as a legitimate actor who is involved in shaping development discourse. And that's what this book she tries to do. By critiquing, again, top-down models of development, Kinyanjui interrogates how global development agendas often marginalize the most marginalized people, local knowledge, and their agency, and she argues for participatory, bottom-up approaches that recognize community resilience and innovation. And she situates women at the heart of this, as in these development debates. Next. And then, so I told you there are like 11 books and there are others which she will talk about. But when she moved to the US, I think looking at what women go through, again, subaltern women, migrant women, she wrote this book, Bakita Today. And also while she was during COVID, together with other scholars, they wrote another book on COVID. But through Bakita, again, which is available there, she explores, it's a collection of poetry and prose that explores the lives of low-income African migrants in the United States, working in low-cadre healthcare jobs. And through, of course, very intimate first-hand accounts, this book weaves a tapestry of challenges, of hopes, and struggles, revealing the resilience, again, of the human spirit. And so, through doing this work, she's able to, again, see, not just put the experiences of many migrant workers on paper, and this can help us also theorize further and appreciate the work that they do. And then, the next, because I can see Basil is here. During COVID, they wrote this book with Thakar and Catherine Ture, COVID stories from East Africa and beyond. Again, going back to that care ethics, looking at care, and the role of, again, everyday people and marginalized people. But in conclusion, Dr. Kinyanjui has challenged the neoliberal narratives that dismiss informal traders as marginal. You remember we call them juakali in Kenya, or they also call themselves. And the experiences and the lived realities of the subaltern people. So not just the traders who she started off with, but all of her work. I know now she's also moving to working with rural women, and I always see that she's really focused on everyday people and the subaltern populations, just as Spivak, those scholars who know. When will the subaltern speak? For her, she's letting the subaltern speak. So she has challenged patriarchal assumptions that deny women's agency. She has emphasized feminist resistance and by seeing women traders, for instance, as subjects of history, while centering urban economic informality. Traders are seen then in her work as active shapers of the city and this economy of the city, and not merely juakali traders, as they have often been referred to in policy and development parlance. She has warned, of course, of the colonial depictions of African markets as chaotic and backward, and instead positioned our markets as social institutions, where ethics of care, reciprocity, and solidarity are practiced using our African philosophies of Utu, of Ubuntu, Gikuyu ethics of solidarity, or even those Gikuyu ways of solidarity like go shaya together. Shaya is to sigh in Gikuyu. She has brought African alternative economics to the academic debates, and through this work, Kinyanjui scholarship has reframed African economies, centered women's agency, and introduced African philosophies like Utu Ubuntu in global market systems. Her work has challenged neoliberal patriarchal narratives while positioning her scholarship as a source of theory and innovation.
I've had the privilege of knowing Mary really since around 2000.
when we were both young, energetic, enthusiastic researchers at the Institute for Development Studies, and also part of the women's movement as part of the Women's Award, the African Association for Women and Research in Africa, where actually at one point Mary and them campaigned for me to become the chairperson of the Kenya chapter. Over the years, I've watched Mary wear many hats with remarkable grace, as has already been said, as a researcher, a teacher, an author, a friend, a public intellectual, and perhaps most importantly, and has been said before, an unrelenting seeker of knowledge. One thing you quickly discover when you meet Mary is that she's not content with easy answers like many of us. She has spent much of her academic life asking difficult questions. Of course, many of us don't. And I think Professor Kamau alluded to that. Asking difficult questions about development, economic justice, how African realities are understood through African perspective, and rather than just basically through borrowed lenses of the West. She has continuously challenged us that we should not overlook or dismiss things that others might dismiss in their academic work. And I think this has already been said by previous speakers. Of course, we know Mary's academic journey has been mentioned here from the University of Cambridge, her PhD, but really despite international exposure, Mary has really remained grounded on Kenya and Africa's reality. Our scholarship has never been for research sake, as Professor Kamau said, that she has even used her own resources to do that. It has been scholarship with purpose, scholarship that speaks to ordinary people, the people that we were told about, how it impacts people's lives, the market, the communities, and work for dignity, as we have been told, as we know when they began with Professor McCormick, the Juakali sector. Over the years, of course, it has been said here just by the speaker before me, she has produced an impressive body of work. In fact, our publications, as has been said, including Women in the Informal Economy and Institutions of Hope, have actually helped reshape. And if you look online, you will see how this thinking and how these works have reshaped how people perceive the economies in Africa, and also the conversations about the informal economy, not just as a space of failure, but one of innovation, resilience, and as we have been told, a space for agency. But impressive publications just tell part of the story, right? Those of us who have worked alongside Mary know many other sides of her. She's wonderfully curious. She has an infectious enthusiasm for ideas. You can begin a conversation with Mary, if you know Mary, or those of us who know Mary, about a roadside market, or Juakali, as they used to call it those days when we were younger. And before you know it, she's discussing Africa's philosophy, global trade, and even history and the future of development theory. She has a remarkable ability to see connections where the rest of us only see separate pieces. Mary has been a generous colleague, and in fact, over the years, we have stayed in contact, talking on a regular basis about life and showing support for each other where that is necessary. Many of us, of course, have benefited from our wisdom, our honesty, and occasionally a gentle but firm challenge for us to think deeper. And let me say this, academia sometimes can reward those who are loudest, but as we know, Mary is not one of those. Mary has shown us that influence does not always come from the loudest voice. Sometimes it comes through consistency, through integrity, through intellectual courage. Through quietly producing works, as has been shown before by the speaker before me, works that stand the test of time. One thing I admire most about Mary is that she has never allowed herself to be confined by conventional thinking. So, as today's lecture reminds us, a valedictory lecture is a moment of reflection, to pause, to look at the academic journey and celebrate contributions, and also the lessons that have been learned. Let me say this, I really do not understand what today's lecture is about. Mary, really? You chose the scars on my feet, scholarship of agency on Kenya's invisible? Sounds too complex for me, but knowing Mary, I have absolutely no doubt that she will explain this to us in a way that we can understand. That's the intellectual Mary. And in fact, she can answer most of the difficult questions. So Mary, today we celebrate not only your accomplishments as a scholar, but also for you as a mentor, a colleague, a friend, a woman of integrity, and also a woman who has expanded the understanding of Africa's development and even made us question ourselves for us to understand deeper. Mary, thank you for your scholarship. Thank you for your courage to challenge established thinking. Thank you for reminding us that ideas matter, that research matters, that universities are at their best when they remain curious and critical and are connected to society, that their work contributes to development.
Today we are celebrating our dear sister, colleague, Njeri Kinyanjui. Mary, it was a pleasure knowing you in those years. That is 30 years ago. We were young scholars, fresh from the universities, as Kaendi said, with our doctorate. We were ambitious, we were in the right institution, and I must say that we were mentored. And today, briefly, because I'm going to be very brief, I must talk about our great mentor, the late Professor Dorothy McCormick, who worked with Mary and I and mentored us in all ways. Of course, when we were in the field, running up and down across the markets, Kariako, Kikomba, name it, we'd be looking forward to going there and speaking with the government makers. We didn't have research assistants. We had I think it was a small car, our driver and the two of us, and we'll report back to our mentor, Professor Dorothy McCormick. We were enthusiastic, we were full of energy, we enjoyed the discussions with actual people who were there. Sometimes that experience tells us that at times we lose out on so much, particularly when you're relying on an assistant who might not even understand the depth and the passion with which you're doing your work. So I treasure that. I really treasure that, Mary. And I really, congratulate you for having kept in touch with some of us. And from whichever part of the world you are in, you always kept in touch and observed my work in various parts of the continent. So again, turning back to that research and the mentorship that we got, Professor held our hands and we listened to her. And she also taught us that we can do non-conventional approach to research. I think that, to me, was the greatest, because at times we force ourselves into data, models, and all that, and then we miss the big picture by not getting to the real cause of the problem. So if you look at our work, which was published in various books and also including the World Development then, I'm telling you, we were so happy with our work. And we were so thrilled about our mentor. And we would talk and talk and talk about the garment industry. So if you Google our book we did, I think it was the World Development one was in 1997. That's a long time back. So Mary, thank you so much for being my sister, for mentoring. As we were in the research, doing our work, we also had time to bond and also talk about various experiences. So when you reminded me about not going back to the USA without tasting my cuisine fish that we used to enjoy and thoroughly enjoy, and I taught you even how to eat the head. I think, those are some of the reflections that not only were we talking about, our garment industry and the growth and the barriers and so on, but we were also talking as young scholars, talking as girls, talking as what is your vision? What is your, it enriched our research. It enriched our thinking. So when you look at that piece of work, 30 years is a long time. The work we did with Professor Dorothy and Dr. Njeri Kinyanjui, when I just browsed through after speaking with Mary yesterday, and I said, what? The recommendations are the same. And we would be so proud if some of you as young scholars pick up on where we left and say, what are the issues there? What is the story of the Mitumba? What are the barriers to small and medium scale garment makers in Nairobi? What has changed? Are they still growing as we expected? What is not happening? What are the constraints? We read a lot about Kikomba and this and that and tax and the AGOA, and what are the policy issues? And this was 30 years ago, when what we were talking about is still what we are grappling with. So as researchers, as scholars, I really hope and wish Mary all the best. You've contributed a lot to knowledge, as we have seen and we know. And I'm just citing this particular study, which we did with Dorothy, as an example. Mary, I want to wish you well in whatever you're doing. I cherish you as my sister. We shared a lot as we were young. As we are growing older, let's grow old together and keep on the good work you're doing. We wish you good health. We wish you good scholarship as you're continuing in various fields, and also the skills that you've discovered later on in your life. I would like to also say that I wish to be in your team that dances, just to let off the steam and grow old smiling, because age is just but a number, and we want not to say we can account for the livelihood we have spent in this world. Mary, we wish you well. May God bless you.
As an alumni of IDS, we talk often a lot about the great transformation by Karl Bolanyi. For us tonight, for us today, we talk about Dr. Njeri Kinyanjui being a great, who have done a great transformation in our lives. And as our lecturer and supervisor, she did much more than kind of research. In our course, Comparative Industrial Strategies, she challenged us to think critically, ask difficult questions, seek answers that matters not only for academia, but also to the society. She contributed heavily and constantly reminded us that the research is not merely about earning a degree, but it's about generating knowledge that improves people's lives. Through practical examples such as the Juakali artisans at Kamukunji and the work of their leaders, e.g., he used to bring in Mzee Chuma from Kamukunji, who came and participated in our class. And through our efforts, she showed us that knowledge is not confined to classrooms, but also lives within our communities. Our office was never a place for academic consultation. It became a place of encouragement, honest conversation, and renewed hope wherever we felt overwhelmed by deadlines, revisions, and self-doubt. She believed in us, and sometimes even before we believe in ourselves. A case study is that in 2013, I was a student, and I used to visit our office because she was my immediate supervisor. I used to get students sitting there. I used to think they're assistants. Kumbe, they were students who have been given a specific seat just in the office to take quite a number of studies. That is very encouraging. One of our greatest gift has been an unwavering commitment to excellence. She taught us that quality is not achieved by chance. It is achieved through discipline, patience, and consistency and integrity. She never accepted mediocrity, considering that she was an alumni of the Cambridge. Wow, it was great. Not because she wanted to make our journey hard, but because she wanted us to discover our very own best. Beyond academics, Dr. Kinyanjui has been a mentor in life through her educational YouTube channels. She has even a YouTube channel. I encourage you to look into it after this. Yes, where she demonstrates humility in sharing knowledge, compassion in service, and resilience in the face of challenges. Through her own example, she has shown us that true scholarship is measured not only in publication or titles, but by the positive impact we make in the lives of others. Finally, her life and work reminds me of a story of Tabitha, also known as Dorcas, in the book of Acts, chapter 9, verse 36. The Bible tells us that when Tabitha died, the widows gathered around her, not to speak about her status or achievement, but to show the garments and clothing she had lovingly made for them. Her work spoke louder than words. Her legacy was written in the lives she adored. Likewise, the story of Dr. Njeri Kinyanjui is told. It will not only be about the books she had authored, the research she has conducted, or the positions she had held. It will be told through the students she mentored, the scholars she inspired, and the communities she empowered, and countless lives she has transformed. Like Tabitha, her greatness testimony is found in the people who stand here today because she invested in them. As we celebrate this valedictory, we also celebrate a remarkable legacy, a legacy that lives in many students. She has supervised, every researcher has inspired, and every community our work has taught. Our influence will continue through us, and we carry forward the values she has installed: curiosity, integrity, courage, compassion, and the many more. Finally, Dr. Kinyanjui, thank you so much for your patience. It is true. And thank you for your unwavering support. You are believing in our potentials. And thank you for investing your time, your knowledge, and your art, shaping not only better scholars, but better human beings. On behalf of me and the entire students, we wish you God's abundant blessing, good health, and joy and fulfillment in your next chapter of journey. May you take pride in knowing that your greatest publications are not only in the books and articles you have written, but also in the lives you have transformed. As the saying goes, a teacher affects eternity. You can never tell where the influence ends. Today, we are living proof of that truth. Thank you, Dr. Kinyanjui. Your legacy will live to continue in inspire generation to come.
I want to say that honestly, reflecting on her work is such a distinguished, reflecting on her work of such a distinguished scholar is both an honor and an opportunity to consider how research can shape not only academic work, but also just looking at the society and looking at how we're going to respond to issues of the society. So I just want to say that as I have engaged with Dr. Njeri Kinyanjui, one of the things that really stood out for me is her emphasis on, the use of local knowledge and community-driven solutions. And why I think her emphasis is the fact that, working with the community, if you're developing any solution, it's a good way because it ensures sustainability. And if I can just say, currently I'm working on an education program, and one thing that I picked from her emphasizing on just using community-driven solution is the fact that if you are developing a solution and you listen to the people, there is a high chance that that particular solution is going to continue and it's not going to be rejected in any way. So for me, I would say her emphasis on recognizing local knowledge and community-driven solution as a powerful source of innovation. Her work really challenged me to rethink how we approach development rather than viewing actors as people who are just from the margins, but look at actors as people who are going to shape or transform the society. So as someone working in research and development, this has made me reflect more deeply on programs, on how programs should be designed. So too often we rely heavily on global best practices, yet Dr. Kinyanjui reminds us that the most sustainable solutions are often rooted in lived experiences, values, and knowledge of communities themselves. So her work has reinforced my belief that people we serve should not simply be beneficiaries of development, but active partners in shaping it. So another lesson I take from her scholarship is the initiative to rethink development through African values. As it has been said, her philosophy on Ubuntu reminds us that lasting progress is built not only on efficiency or competition, but also on collaboration, mutual support, and shared prosperity. And I believe this is a perspective that is relevant today, as it will be for future generations of scholars and practitioners. And even as I conclude, I just want to share something small, Basil, if you allow me. Some time back, when we were to elect courses, intentionally, I did not, it's such a shame back then that I did not pick her course. And for this reason, one is, at times when you are choosing an elective course, you'd pick it based on the fact that it's going to help in your career, one. And also we did our own background search. You'd pick it because the particular lecturer would share much knowledge. And from what we gathered from our colleagues, those that had done courses of Dr. Njeri Kinyanjui, and they told us that pick it if you want more knowledge. She's someone who thinks not just on the surface. She would critically make you not to think just from an ordinary perspective. You see something on a different angle. And so despite the fact that we were encouraged, there was so much strength, I intentionally did not pick it. I think for maybe the reason, the fact that maybe at that time when you look at Dr. Kinyanjui, there was also some silent, that she's tough, she's strict, and I intentionally did not pick it at that particular time. Later on, when we were being assigned supervisor, my topic was on education. I was assigned to her. I was like, okay, it seems like fate, it seems like we were meant for each other somehow, that I had to encounter her at one point or the other. So, and in that particular, now that she had been assigned to me as my supervisor, I said, okay, now we are here, Lydia, what do we do? And I was like, let me do a background search of how I'm gonna deal with her. How am I going to survive in this, all this? So I also talked to my previous students who had passed through, and they encouraged me that what you just do, when it comes to supervisory sessions, just do what she wants. It's okay for you to, challenge her. Don't be afraid, because she likes such kind of student. And years later, surprisingly, it went well. We had our rough moments, we had our good moments where she'd, tell me things are not making sense. There are those moments that she'll say, it is now making sense, and etc. So it really went well to a point that she'd even invite me to her home later on. And one day I think she was writing a paper on exams, and she quoted me on the daily newspaper. To date, I have kept that daily newspaper because she quoted my name in that. And I just want to tell you, Dr. Kinyanjui, that you just writing my name on that paper was such a confidence booster, because you're such, I would say, a person who is of authority in the education space, and such a smart person in the education space. Just you writing my name on the newspaper gave me a confidence booster. And later on, I have written a paper that we published. It is because of that belief that you made me know that indeed you can write. So thank you so much.
Daktari, I'm really happy, and I'm not going to say a word about my work and all other things that I have done at IDS. The only thing I would want to say is that you gave academic life the politeness that we never experienced from any of our other lecturers. Attempt from the time I was doing my first degree, and I was like, I will really venture into politics and see the changes that politics need to do in Africa to actually change lives. Up to today, I still write, think, and listen to talks, and I always see the link between the work that you are doing and the political connection that it has. I do not regret not taking your economics and micro economic courses that we were supposed to do, but I really see the reason why majority of my lecturers, including my supervisor, Professor Njuguna, and the rest, and even the late Professor McCormick and the late Okidi, why they were so particular on me doing courses and writing on micro and small businesses. I still see a very big linkage between the political challenges that we have in Africa and its connection to the small businesses, to the women movement, and the documents that you have written. I just want to thank you so very much. You might not know, but actually when we were facing a number of challenges, especially during our exit, because I was torn between working and doing my work, I actually felt humbled. And in my paper, I've even written, I'm sure they will share with you, politeness at its best in an academic circle. It was something that I was really, because every place you go, lecturers are busy, people are bombarding you, you are protecting an image. But when we came to your office, it was really the opposite. Thank you very much.
You are not the only people who ran away from Njeri. I did. I did a statement of statement problem which comes first, whichever comes first. I did it very well, and I was so happy that I had achieved and I'd come up with a research problem. And when I took to her, she just looked at me and said, Nini, are you communicating? Can you sit down there and rewrite it again? I did write again, but that was the last time I gave her my work to read. And I thank Professor Kamau, he really assisted me to complete my project. And but anyway, she's one of the best lecturers. She's a person of few words, but very knowledgeable. There's that book that she has written about the market, the market. We went to the Gara market and the Mwindi, doing her purchase from the window. We were with her that particular day. I was busy bargaining, but she was busy acquiring knowledge to write a paper. The next thing I saw, I was given 20 pages to write on that, to type. I did type and went to present the paper at Safari Park. And when I was typing, I didn't get anything that she was like what I was typing and writing and typesetting and doing the slides. But finally, when she presented, I found myself to be, wacha tu nisiseme what I felt. And the next day, I registered in a class hapa at Nairobi University, and I managed to pursue my degree course and the diploma. And I'm very grateful, Njeri, because of molding me and making me to be what I am today. Even today, I'm still her personal assistant. If she wants anything done, I do it with a clean heart and with a lot of energy. So Njeri, you're still my sister, my mentor, and my friend. I know she's very close to me. She can confide to me many things, unlike others. And the final things I'll say is that we lost my father 2 weeks ago. We buried him on Saturday, may so rest in peace. And he had a mental dementia. So anytime you would ask somebody the name, we would identify. I used to call myself Jane Raymond. So when I say Jane and Raymond, he knows that is the daughter. And when Njeri said, this is Njeri, do you know what he said? Njeri wa mafuku. Whoever, that is French. That is French, but in English, it meant that Njeri of books, yeah? Njeri, that one who writes books, who loves reading. That is what our father identified Njeri with. Maybe I don't know what he identified me with. And I hope Njeri continue writing, making impact to the society. And I know this is a great day as we celebrate you with your colleagues, your students, and Kamau. Thank you for making this thing happen. And Joki, Joki Wamae, I don't know you, and I don't know why I don't know you, and I know most of the people seated here. You have to explain to me why I don't know you.
And first of all, let me thank the Institute of Development Studies and the University of Nairobi for celebrating this great woman. She's a great storyteller, she's a poet, and she's also a great scholar whom we have all learned from. And I'll speak on behalf of the nieces and nephews. And I can attest, Lydia, that this woman here is tough. and she's strict, but in a good way, because we, all of us, nieces and nephews, at one point in time, we have passed through this great woman, and she's instructed us in different ways. Sometimes, unaletewa kitabu hapo, you are told, read that and finish. And sometimes she also takes very keen interest in our studies. She's always ready to clear our school fees, follow up on our scores and all that. So we really appreciate Daktari. Let me call you Daktari today. And number two, I've also witnessed her passion for the informal sector and her passion for the mama mbogas, the famous mama mbogas and wale watu wa boda boda and all those people. Because when I developed some interest in politics, I got a free course from Dr. Njeri Kinyanjui, and she persuaded me that the informal sector is not indignified. They are not, you see, the informal sector is just people who don't pay taxes, those people at the bottom, the people we don't want to associate with them. But she persuaded me that those are agents of development, and those are the people that we need to develop this country. And I'm really persuaded. I happened to be on the ballot in that Olkalauba election, where you are seeing us getting a lot of money and votes and all that. But I had to be here for this great woman. And I promise you, Auntie, that passion for the informal sector, that passion for education, I will try and push it in that side of politics. And allow me to finish by saying that I had a poem that still I rise, but let me say this, that through you we rise. Thank you.
So I know Dr. Njeri since her birth. Njeri was raised by his grandfather of mother very much, because Njeri had followed the grandfather's career of being a teacher. My father, who is the grandfather of Njeri, was a teacher. In fact, he was a provincial director of education for those days by the time, because he was in charge of all the Catholic schools in the central province. So when Njeri became a teacher, my father was so happy. The mother of Njeri was a teacher then. The father of Njeri was an education officer. So Njeri has copied each of everyone she has met with. Njeri, since he became a teacher, all of our children were able, and they became interested of going for higher education. They used to come to reach Form 4s, then they go for colleges. And since Njeri became a teacher for university then, all our children, now they are cramming to reach where Njeri could come or have reached now. So Njeri is a mentor of our family. Njeri also has helped our community very much. Njeri, he is ever able to go deep into our grassroots, to be a member of the boards of our local schools. For example, one of the best schools now, she was the first board member called Juvenalis, named after my dad. It is one of the best schools, and it is because of her advice. So, Njeri has been very meaningful to our community. She has never stayed in Nairobi for quite a long time without coming home and meeting with the community, advising them how to raise their standard of living. So, Njeri, I congratulate you. Even after this, I know you have not slept. I know by the end of this year, he has written a book called Ahead of His Time. His grandfather, Juvenalis Gitau, and we are going to launch it at least by the end of this year. So, Njeri, keep on doing well, and God will bless you. I had come with my wife and a friend there. Can you stand up? That is the wife. She has mentored Njeri for quite a long time. Even you see him young, she's old enough, more than Njeri. So, even if it is not too much, because the ages is between 10 to 15 years before Njeri was born. So I could know his tabias and his alikuwa mtu mzuri sana huyu kwetu. The family are very grateful of him. And I wish this farewell came into our home. We could learn a lot from what Njeri has been doing here.
Ladies and gentlemen, as I speak on behalf of the Uhuru Market Fraternity, allow me to begin by saying that the ordinary trader in our markets and every Juakali artisan should never be underestimated. They are not merely informal workers struggling to make ends meet. They are entrepreneurs with immense potential, given the right environment and access to opportunities and the necessary support. They can become powerful drivers of Kenya's economy and transformation. This is why I deeply appreciate the vision of Dr. Njeri. She does not simply see the Juakali sector as a collection of informal businesses. She sees an economic ecosystem, a vibrant network of innovation, resilience, and enterprise. She reminds us that we should never despise small beginnings, as I've heard many of us say about her and how they were mentored to be whoever they are, because extraordinary transformation often begins in most ordinary places. If we are serious about transforming our nation, we cannot begin only from the top. True and lasting transformation starts where people live, work, struggle every day. It begins in our markets, workshop, and small businesses. Indeed, this aligns with the government's commitment, our current government commitment to a bottom-up economic model. Njeri often speak about Wajiko, the ordinary Kenyan woman who represents millions of hardworking citizens whose voices are really hard, yet whose daily efforts sustain our economy. Wajiko is the mama boga in Uhuru Market. She is the mother, balancing family responsibilities while running a small business. These entrepreneurs do not simply need financial support. They need mentors, advocates, and leaders who will walk alongside them. Dr. Njeri has consistently demonstrated that kind of leadership to us in Uhuru Market. During the COVID-19 pandemic, when uncertainty was at its highest, Dr. Njeri encouraged and motivated us to begin producing face masks. Because of that encouragement, traders in Uhuru Market responded with determination, and soon the market became a trusted destination where leaders, politicians, and citizens, many politicians, because I was the chairman of the market then, were able to come to me as they were looking for face masks, and we really did some booming business. Politicians and citizens from all walks of life came to access an essential product. She also took time to personally train and mentor women traders working at a very challenging condition. And in that, I want to bring the greetings of Wairimo, who told me that he could not make it, but he actually appreciates all that you did to the women group that you worked with then. So challenging condition, equipping them with skills and confidence to continue earning a livelihood. This approach reflects a timeless principle found in scripture, whereby God often works through ordinary people, uses those society overlooks, and values what the world dismisses. David was a shepherd before he became a king. The disciples were fishermen before they became leaders who transformed the world. God did not begin with the possessions of power. He began with the ordinary people willing to serve faithfully. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to go to this, but let me just read it. There was a research that was conducted by HEVA, because I know there are leaders here of government and other areas, and I would like this to come to us. A research was conducted by HEVA Fund, highlighting the realities facing many small traders today. The findings reveal that traders need greater access to certification, affordable short courses, and training centers located close to their market so they can continue running their businesses while improving their skills, since many cannot afford training. Subsidized or free education opportunities would significantly increase participation, particularly among women. Women traders face additional challenges, including childcare responsibilities and the absence of support facilities within many markets. An intervention aimed at improving their livelihoods must therefore consider these realities if it is to be truly inclusive. The study also identifies several priority areas of capacity building, technical training, equipment operation, ensure traders maximize use of modern machinery, marketing and digital commerce, enabling business to leverage social media, digital advertising, and emerging technology. Financial literacy, including strategic use of mobile money platforms such as M-Pesa and M-Shwari. Business development skills that prepare traders to move beyond individual retail sales into business market, larger contracts, and regional trade. And so many of this. And therefore, we just want to say that we are there. We would want to work with the ideas, and they have been, I remember one time Dr. Njeri invited me to the class that she was teaching, and I was able to interact with the students. And therefore, she is a lady that is ready to work with all kind of people, irrespective of where we are in those places of Juakali and such. Well, she is in a place like this, in the teaching fraternity, and therefore we thank God for her.
I have known Dr. Njeri for a very long time, 30 years plus. And tonight, I feel very privileged to be in this session to honor Dr. Njeri. And I want to concur with the speaker, the sister, and that other lady who said that Njeri is a lady of few words. Because what I have known Njeri today is not the Njeri I know. Because when Njeri joined us in our community, Kawasukari, over 30 years ago, she joined our Jumuiya. And she joined our church, St. Joseph Catholic Church. And she joined our Jumuiya, St. Peter. And we are very close with Njeri. And as Christians, you know what Jumuiyas do. We walk, we pray, we pray together. We walk for charity, visiting the vulnerable or the people who need our prayers, and playing together. And that's what we have been doing all these years. I'm surprised to hear that Dr. Njeri worked with the small businesses, something to do with that, because I was in that. She didn't know what I do, and I didn't know what she does. And it's just the other day that, like last year, that I retired. And when I retired, when you're idle, you join all the social medias. Like in Facebook, I'm Sabina Gedena. In Instagram, I'm Faith and Sabina. In Threads, I'm Faith and Sabina. And that's when I came across Njeri's articles. And I called her and asked her, "You write this article?" And I said, "Oh, I have a daughter who does broadcasts. And I'm with her here, Evelyn. That lady is my daughter." And I took her to her house. And she did Njeri an interview. And it's from the interview, I was just lying there on her sofa. And I was listening to what she's talking about. And then I wondered, do I know this lady? Do I really know her? Well, as a Christian, she had all the virtues of a Christian. Very humble. Very humble. Very empathetic. Because I remember, like one time, I had girls who had an incident. And they needed a shoulder to cry on. And I asked Dr. Njeri, "Can you take me to see these girls?" Though my girls, I had a school somewhere. And Dr. Njeri told me, "I'll go with you." We went with her. And Dr. Njeri cried with the girls. They cried on her shoulders. And she consoled her. And when we left that place, we left it our place healed. The girls were healed. So in the Christian perspective, I knew Njeri. But the academia field, I didn't know. I know she's a doctor, she's a runner. But I didn't know that she's such a noble, a giant academia. And tonight I feel very privileged and very proud to be associated with her. I hear what impact she has left to the university. And the impact she has impacted on the students that passed through her hands. And all we could ask God tonight is to bless her, to strengthen her with health so that she can continue. She's young. She's my age, all just there. We have a long way to go, isn't it? Yes. Start your work now. Your work has just begun. And she just told me, oh, come, attend my, she didn't tell me what exactly it was. But see, now I sat there and I know, I understood what it is. But somehow, in my small wisdom, I'd try to write something for her. And the key to being a great success is being yourself, Dr. Njeri. Follow your vision. Trust your evolution. And never be afraid to walk boldly to the next version, I repeat that, of yourself. The people who change rooms are the ones willing to grow through them.
I think I'm among the people who have known Njeri the many years other than their grandfather or their uncle. I knew Njeri as a second year student when she was in Kenyatta University, and we shared a common friend, Professor Nyamweru. Kirudu, I'm seeing you, salute you. And we just got on very well. Njeri is academically endowed, that is a fact. I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about our social life, since I'm talking about friendship. Some years later, Njeri left, came to University of Nairobi. Sort of we lost contact, but once in a while we would meet. After several years again we met. She's my neighbor, and we continued where we had stopped. We are friends. I go to Njeri's place. Most of our siblings know me, and she has come to my place, and most of my people know her. People say they don't understand Njeri and ask me, how do you manage with Njeri? I say, Njeri is just an interesting person. Sometimes Njeri will talk to you and you are laughing and laughing. Other times she'll just keep quiet, and that is so. We go out with Njeri for a drink. Njeri comes to my place for a coffee. Njeri invites me to a place for a coffee. We go for a walk. So, other than academics, Njeri is just an ordinary person, an ordinary woman. But I can also confess, sometimes I don't understand her. Because Njeri will tell me, let's go to Tala Market. And then I say, okay, let's go. She's going to interview women, asking them about their financing. It has never occurred to me that women would be, the traders would be, how they get their funding. And then through the chama she has been talking about. And I think Njeri maybe somebody read your work, read your mind. And that's how the Hustler Fund came. Because now people are able to get this little money and they boost their business. I don't want to say a lot. Njeri, continue. I'm sure you will go far. I was a bit afraid when you retired early. In fact, I remember telling you, why are you going so early? You can put in another 5 years. But I think the time you did was the best. And then you are offering this other different exposure. And then you look at things differently. I'm your number one cheerer all the time.
And congratulations, Mary.
Mutumia toyo, moge ogwa, Ngai nĩ mwega. Ngai nĩ mwega. Taya. Amwonire kũ? Nĩatũma tũmwone. Ngai nĩ mwega, nĩatũma. Aratataya. Aratataya. Ngai nĩ mwega.
But I'll begin with an apology. I know most of the students thought I was very harsh. And there is a student seated at the back. One time, I had prepared a table on education in Kenya, and it lacked her province. And she stood up, she raised her hand and asked me, where is Northeastern? Can you remember that? The one at the back. I can remember you asking me that question. She's smiling. She can't remember, but I can remember her asking me that question where I had left out Northeastern while including all other provinces and showing the distribution of education. Others thought I was too serious. Others thought I didn't care, but we all had a lot of pressures, a lot of challenges that we dealt with in this university. So it was not easy to teach. And many of you can attest to that, and I can say that's why most of the leaders are absent, because they don't like success. So I'll begin with an abstract. Within Kenya's contemporary urban landscape, a profound paradox persists between the statistical predominance of the informal economy and its spatial erasure. Although the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics estimates that 15 million individuals constituting 83% of the national workforce are engaged in the informal sector. Urban planning and state policy remain tethered to a formalist bias inherited from the colonial era. This speech interrogates the systemic marginalization of the informal workers from mama boggers to artisans and matatu drivers and their touts. They are rendered as nobodies or invisibles by a state apparatus that privileges corporate aesthetics and globalized modernity over the sustenance of human livelihoods. Grounded in auto-ethnic narrative and lived experience, this work advances a foundational critique of neoliberal development paradigms and modernization perspective through the lens of what I conceptualize as the geography of scars, the material and ontological imprint of labor on the Kenyan coffee and tea farms. The analysis exposes the extractive logics embedded within the global commodity chains and academic knowledge production. By weaving personal testimonies of survival, displacement, and institutional exclusion with rigorous geographical inquiry, the study deconstructs what it terms the Great Deception, a global economic architecture that depends upon the labor of the global south while systematically rendering its agents invisible. Central to this work is the introduction of Hutu feminism, a theoretical framework rooted in indigenous Kenyan ethics of dignity, mutual accountability, epitomized in the maximum of my mom, Mwatida Mugeikatea, what did you do today? And communal reciprocity. I challenge orthodox economic discourses that dismisses women in the informal economy as mere survivalists, instead positioning them as sophisticated strategists who navigate volatile supply chains through trust-based micro-equity arrangements, rotating saving groups, and strategic deployment of social capital. This work issues critical warning against the trap of formalization, arguing that contemporary efforts to bureaucratic informal trade represent a colonial and patriarchal imposition that systematically dismantles the strategic architecture of women and men's resilience. Rather than conscripting these vibrant economies into rigid and extractive framework, I advocate for a humanized economy, one that recognizes the informal sector is not a developmental deficit. The work concludes that the imperative is not formalization, but the radical legitimization of indigenous economic intelligence. It opposes the demolition of Ibada in Nairobi and calls for a transition from exclusionary spectacle-driven modernity towards an urbanism rooted in Hutu, solidarity and recognition of the informal sector as a sophisticated ecosystem of care and local agency. Ultimately, the work envisions the creations of cities, not of stone, but of the soul. Acknowledgements. This work is not a product of solitary scholarship, but rather a collective composition. The intellectual and emotional labor that rendered this work possible was nurtured and sustained by a vast network of individuals. To characterize my experience as one of mere support would be an understatement. I'm a living testament to the principles of Hutu humanness, communal reciprocity that this work seeks to theorize and advance. My deepest gratitude commences at the hearth in Ngedo village, to my parents, my father and mother, who sacrificed their own comforts to secure school fees. You invested in a future you could envision but could not yet touch. To my mother, the dean of my first university, thank you for the syllabus of Proverbs and the nightly audit that instilled in me the discipline of accountability. To my siblings who served as my first research assistants and my most enduring safety net by assuming responsibility for my daughter, you held my world steady so that I might learn to map it. To my daughter and her father, my grandchildren, Lydia and Lucy and their father, you are my living legacy and the animating purpose behind the commitment to a more just world. I'm profoundly grateful to my supervisors who guided me with patience and intellectual generosity. The late Professor Michael Dako and David Kibo, they opened the doors to the formal language of academia, while my friends and colleagues warmed its otherwise cold corridors. A special thank you to Professor Syria Nyamwero and Professor Agnes Musyoki, my steadfast companions throughout this academic journey. To Dorothy McCormick, my research colleague, to Professor Patrick Kalila, who recruited me at IDS, I extend my appreciation for what you did. During my residence at Massachusetts and Kansas City, Elizabeth Ginepro, Professor Carl Coban, and Kalia Meriwether offered profound friendship and mentorship that sustained me across continents. Elizabeth Modsre, Philomena Tut, and Catherine Thule provided support that enabled me to bring my voice to global stages in Mumbai and beyond. I am also indebted to Loretta Ross, Nairi Rubian, Lida Pickborn, and Preston Smith for introducing me to an America of resistance and for guiding me through the intellectual community of 5 College Women's Studies. My scholarship would lack both foundation and purpose without the Juakari workers and market traders who permitted me to witness their rare courage. For example, Moremi Joka's mother and other women at Sega Market who, led by Benedict Nyambura, gave me the true story of how markets operate. I'm grateful to Nyahururu Taveta Women Association, Wakagiri, John Nganga, Mama Joka, and Benedict Nyambura. Thank you for instructing me in the unrecorded feminist economics of everyday life. To Philomena Bari and Mwarimu Ignatius Gasheru, thank you for anchoring me in the ancestral wisdom of cultural heritage. To the strangers on crowded buses, the tax drivers, and lad people across Europe and America who opened their homes when my modest budget frayed at the edges. You invested not merely in a person, but in a paradigm. I'm grateful to those who provided the infrastructure of care that rendered this research viable. To Mwehaki and Wanjiru for loving and caring for my daughter as though she were your own. To Wanjoya, Angela Kamau, and Josephat Juma. Josephat Juma was the saving grace that supported my editorial work. I remember when my working paper was rejected by IDS on new entrepreneurs in rural Kenya. It was dismissed as lacking in theory. It was dismissed as lacking in policy. But Juma saved me. He published it, and I got numerous comments that were beyond explanation. Thank you, Juma, for restoring my life. I'm also grateful to my prayer partners, who include Shiroga Shusha and Mary Mobi. I'm also grateful to Lydia Gaiterera. I'm also grateful to Dr. Mungai Kamete and Josephine Kamete. Thank you for providing me the sanctuary and the faith that sustained me in my darkest movement. I don't even know that you know that the small booklet, Bakita Today, was written in your house after listening to the stories that you people used to talk about your experiences as care workers. To my sisters Anastasia, Lydia, and Jane, your prayers and practical assistance with mundane labors of daily life constitute the quiet work that renders this loud scholarship possible. I'm grateful to many other people, Peter Coughlin and Mwikali, Rusekasioka, the Garoyas, the late Mwikamba of Kamukoji, Wakanyi, Rosa Kereka, Teresa Hinga, Ann Jogona, Wamburageshimu, Tabitha Wero, Cecilia Gadhoni, Felix Kerodho, Wamboi Gaido, my students who always touch base, and my nephews. And in conclusion, I would wish to remember my late student, Shem Watako, whom I supervised as my first PhD. Unfortunately, he didn't live to eat the fruits of his PhD. So, these people have helped me write this work. And many people might be wondering, why did I write this book, The Scars on My Feet? If you look at my left foot, I have 3 scars which I incurred while picking tea and coffee. And you know, if coffee or tea pierces you, the wood takes long to heal. And that's what happened. That's why I have the scars. And these scars were revived while I sat in Cambridge at the basement. And I would see the students coming down to fill cups with coffee and tea, to go and write their thesis. But in their writings, they were writing about primitive peasants, backward peasants, people who will never learn, people who need smart technology, and all that. And as I sat there, I knew we were not primitive. I knew we were just people who things were extracted from us. I remembered, while the scholars remained awake, drinking coffee to fuel their writing theories, I remained awake, drinking coffee to fuel the writing of their theories. I remember the stubborn soil embedded beneath my nails, the biting cold of the highland mornings, and the heavy damp weight of coffee and tea baskets pressed against my back. Even now, the 3 scars on my left foot, edged by injuries sustained during those years of labor, speak with quiet eloquence, testifying to a journey that I sometimes prefer to carry in silence. Coffee travels the world as sterile commodity, stripped of its origins. I too have moved through elite academic spaces where my roots were treated as invisible. I have sat in rooms where my labor was consumed as data, yet my story was unwelcome as theory. My academic life has been forged in the fire of these contradictions. They have compelled me to ask the most difficult questions. Who owns knowledge? What does resilience actually look like when the cameras are switched off? And who, within the hierarchies of the academy, truly earns the right to be heard. My survival has been a full-time job. There was a season when, squeezed by structural adjustments imposed by the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, I found myself unable to afford a home in a safe neighborhood. Faced the unbearable rent, I moved my life into an incomplete house. I had no ceiling, no paint, and no proper windows, only the raw skeleton of a dream, yet it was mine. It was a home constructed from necessity and hope. I have necessity and hope. I've also lived through movements of violence and violation that left a deep, cold fear lodged in my bones. I do not subscribe to the neat narrative that these experiences made me stronger. Rather, they made me honest. They stripped away academic pretensions and left me with the relentless search for knowledge that serves the invisible. The women navigating systems that were never designed for their safety, their dignity, or their flourishing. Academia brought its own woods. I faced relentless stream of publication rejections and failed interviews for professorship at my own institution, but each refusal felt like a personal dismissal, not merely of my writing, but of my lived experience that gave that writing its pulse. Yet, each rejection sharpened my clarity. I came to understand that I was not fighting for the crumbs of institutional acceptance. I was fighting for academic legitimacy of the nobodies of the world. The Goba Ad Hoc Women's Group, Gorongo Matangi, the Nyahururu Taveta Women Association offered me a feminist solidarity that no classroom could teach. My mother's voice demanding nightly accountability, my brother's presence, the laughter of my sisters, and the prayers of my aunts, friends, and St. Peter Jumuiya became the scaffolding of my life. I was tutored even by strangers. I remember a taxi driver who told me, "Degowaga haria ikagio. A seed does not always land where one throws it." He was reminding me that life rarely follows our blueprints, but wherever it runs, you learn to stand, to adapt, and to grow. He taught me that when the world curses you, the only thing you must never do is to curse yourself. Through it all, the rhythm of the rosary and the quiet sanctuary of the Mass kept me anchored. My Catholic faith provided the language for endurance and the grace to begin again. In my academic life, I'm committed to scholarship of reclamation, to seek to restore dignity and agency to men and women of the informal economy, those whose labor built the world, yet whose names are missing from the ledgers of history. I seek to expose extraction and exploitation in all their forms, intellectual and emotion. My principles are not abstract theories. They are carved from the bedrock of my body. They are social empathy, compassion, conscientiousness and respect, self-reliance and radical courage. reciprocity, and gifting. These are the survival strategies that carried me through the red dust of the farm to the world stage. My story is neither linear nor tidy. It's not triumphant in the way success is usually packaged for consumption. It's a story of falling and rising, of being broken and choosing the slow work of healing, and of being silenced, yes, choosing to speak. If my work carries any power, it is because it emerges from a life lived fully in faith, community, and courage to remain standing. So, Joki did a good job analyzing my work. So I'll skip the sections where I had presented my work and move to the section on decolonizing the research high table. For too long, African scholarship has been subjected to what Africa is described as the burden of the case study. We are expected to provide raw materials, the stories of struggle, while Western theorists provide the analysis. In my work, I refused this division of labor. I went to the prayers, the meetings, and the funerals of Juakari community. I sat in the shade of their ingenuity, and when they spoke to me, they were not giving me the data points. They were correcting my biases. This was a profound lesson in what Mignol calls epistemic disobedience. The push for formalization is often a masculine colonial design to make the fluid a dynamic legible to the state. By resisting the cage of the formal, the Juakari artisans preserve their radical agility. They remind us that the sovereign territory is not defined by a deed or a title, but the ability to negotiate one's place in the world. My work is not a solitary academic achievement. It is a collective composition. The Juakari workers, the market women selling githeri, which is a mixture of bean and maize, and the generous spirit who supported my journey are all co-signatories, not just bank account. As I move from the margins to the center of my own life, I carry with me the dust of Nyedo on my feet and the sparks of the Juakari in my thinking. We did not modernize these vibrant living economies to make them fit into a broken Western model. Instead, we must have the humility to let their system of Utu rebuild our understanding of what it means to be human in a globalized world. For example, when I see professors taking each other to court for positions, when I see people doing crazy things for things that they don't, why don't we ask John Nganga and Pastor Kehara how they negotiate their conflicts at Uhuru Market, where they have small spaces, when we spend a lot of money going to court for nothing, for position and for jobs. So everyday life as a living archives. In traditional Western academy, an archive tends to be a silent, climate-controlled room filled with brittle paper and the faint smell of dust. But for a scholar rooted in Hutu feminism, the archive is anything but silent. It's loud, mobile, and often painted in neon. The matatus, those colorful public transit vans, and the radio jingles that float from the speakers of the roadside kiosk and Juakari workshops are what I have come to think of the archives. They are the decentralized living records of people's soul, constantly negotiating what it means to belong in a globalized world. Matatu culture, the canvas of subaltern resistance. The matatu is far more than a vehicle. It is a sovereign territory on wheels, a moving description of presence. Sometimes I tell my friends to imagine the matatu driver woke up at 3 a.m. and you wake up at 6 a.m. While you are driving, he has already done 2 rounds of taking people into the city. And then you had time to take your breakfast, to powder your nose, to check yourself in the mirror, and drive comfortably. And then you are crisscrossing with the matatu driver. Would you put yourself in his shoes? This man maybe drank tea from a can at the mama at the what they call Irima. And then also remember the trauma these drivers may have. He might have been walking to school 10 kilometers. He might have been dropped out of school because of lack of school fees. He might have dropped because of other things. So can we heal? We work towards the healing of the matatu drivers, and maybe we can resolve the problem of the accidents. So let's think critically about how we perceive things. So matatu art, it's called vandalism or informal. But to me, it's a record of political and spiritual resilience and resistance. Radio jingles, it's consumer noise. Oral tradition, the evolution of the proverb in the digital age. Scrap metal, waste poverty, material archive, the retro remaking of the colonial world. And my mother saying, Mwatida Mugeikatia, casual greeting, is a daily audit, a rigorous feminist demand for accountability. It was my first viva, the first defense. Networking, collaboration, and the African scholar. Networking is frequently promoted as the great equalizer of modern academic and professional era, a bridge capable of spanning the considerable chasm between the global north and the global south. Yet, for the African scholar, the bridge often functions as a one-way street, designed primarily for the extraction of local data rather than the genuine exchange of global ideas. My own journey from the University of Cambridge to the University of Nairobi serves as a testimony to the complexities, gatekeeping, and mechanism, and subtle exploitation that continue to characterize international collaboration. In the idealized fashion of academia, networking is understood as a reciprocal relationship. In practice, however, it is frequently operated as a sophisticated form of great greeting. Throughout my career, I have observed a recurring pattern. Scholars from the global north seek collaboration from Africa, not out of genuine desire for intellectual synergy, but rather to fulfill their grant requirements or to secure research clearance. In such situation, I've always seen myself as a glorified research assistant. So the next thing is carrying the red dust forward, a manifesto for Lydia and Lucy. I'm afraid my grandchildren didn't come with me. To my grandchildren, Lydia and Lucy, and to the African scholars who will one day sit at tables, I've only just begun the rattle. I leave you not merely a story, but a map. This is not static, cold cartography of the colonizer, drawn to confine and control. It is the living, breathing geography of Hutu feminism, etched in lead dust and carried in the sole of your feet. Within the hallowed halls of Cambridge, the University of Nairobi, I learned that the world often tries to formalize the spirit. It tries to take the vibrant and rural beauty of the market and the juakari shed and kiosk, it away in a cage efficiency and legibility, to make it fit neatly into boxes that were never designed for it. But I have spent my life learning what my mother and my grandmother already knew in their bones. The most enduring system are those built on care and on radical, unbreakable interconnectedness of the people. Lydia and Lucy, when you look at the 3 scars on my left foot, I do not want you to see them as marks of poverty. See them instead as my first doctoral thesis written long before I even entered a lecture hall. They are the living record of a woman who traversed deep valleys and scaled relentless ridges, who carried goods and hopes on your back to ensure that your path through this world would be a little smoother, but no less grounded on the soil that shaped her. I'll skip the turning points. Those who want to read more can buy the book outside and move on to kitchenizing the boardroom. In reimaging the spaces where power is exercised, I have forged a manifesto that I call kitchenizing the boardroom. For decades, feminist geography and development economics have focused their efforts to try to bring women to the table. Yet this approach begs a more fundamental question: what if the table itself is the problem? The traditional boardroom, as we have come to know it, is a space defined by extraction, hierarchy, and cold efficiency. It's an environment that views my neighbor's coffee as mere commodity and treats my labor as a cost to be minimized. Kitchenizing the boardroom, by contrast, represents a radical act, bringing the logic of the fireside space into the halls of power, whereas the boardroom prioritizes accumulation. The kitchen operates according to a different principle altogether, that of sustenance. So what I'm simply saying here is that our women are aspiring to go to the boardrooms, but how are they going there? Are they going there to take their philosophies and ideologies, or are they going there to join what is considered the mainstream, and that is the masculine frame. So instead of women going to claim that space of the masculine space, they should fight to bring the feminine ideology of Utu, where the women gather together. They'll give you a lesson if you happen to give birth on the roadside. But I know one journalist, when a woman went to the to the TV station with her night pajamas, instead of giving her a lesson, she took the cameras. Here is a mad woman coming to the station with pajamas. But if it was at Uhuru Market and Nganga would testify, they would have given her a lesson, given her water to drink, and sat her down. That's what I'm saying, kitchenizing the boardroom. The other thing I want to say is that we should see equality like the Agujas Bay. As a geographer, and Belta can testify, Agujas Bay is the meeting point of two ocean currents. The Atlantic Ocean meets the Indian Ocean current, and when they meet, they don't submerge each other. They swirl. One maintains its identity and the other one maintains its identity. And together they make the ocean beautiful, and they allow the flora and the fauna of the ocean to grow and survive. So this is the kind of equality I envision. Equality where we are beggar qua beggar, where it's not statistics, 70% men and 70% women. What I want is the women to bring the ideology, the men to bring the ideology, and we coexist. Those of you who have gone to the Tana River Delta, you have seen how the Tana River flows into the ocean, and after flowing for many long distances, trying to survive with its silted waters, it gets swallowed up by the Indian Ocean, and you can never tell whether there was silted water. So that's the kind of equality I would like you to have. The equality whereby we stand beggar qua beggar, each with the ideology of care, without submerging the other. I'll stop there, but I have a bakshishi, like the market women do. And ugari sosa. And I hope Kamau will not be annoyed with me. People going to court for no reasons. Kamau, you knew where my office was. As I sat in my office, the Dragon Parade, as I sat in my office, I would hear noise outside. Children practicing the Dragon Parade. In colored eye attire, the students would lift the dragon and march. I would imagine Nyajiro, whose blood was spattered to cover the university ground, crying. She was killed while resisting colonialism. Should be crying because of the way we were taking up foreign values which they died resisting. When I look at the university towers where we are, We had engineers, we have quantity surveyors, we have interior decor, we have architects. But the building was built under closed walls. Our student engineers would not come to see what was happening, and nobody really came. Neither was the literature department. They couldn't write poems on the changing skylines. So what are we doing? In Ed 2, where we used to hold the meetings, you may wonder why Kamau I never used to come to the meetings. When looking at the meetings, there was a big picture of the dragon. And I would look at the dragon and I visualize, the dragon coming to swallow and then coiling itself. I would imagine the dragon swallowing me and swallowing all our economy, swallowing everything. So I thought if I stayed in that Ed 2, it would be difficult to live in that dragon. And then when I look at this building, why don't we have a romantic Maasai warrior image standing on the wall? Why don't we have the big fives on the wall? Why don't we have the grains in Western Kenya? Why don't we have the fishing boats from Lake Victoria? Why don't we have the coconut tree, the zebu cows on this wall? So my question is, are there universities in Africa or African universities? Kamau, I did not acknowledge you in my acknowledgement. I know you have helped me in crying sometimes, but if you can answer that question, I'll be happy. And then I would like you to take the message. Let them restore the independence of the IDS. Let them not park ideas where it is. That is my prayer, which I pray every day. We are known for destroying institutions which were handed to us. Let's preserve them. Let's preserve traditions. Don't ask me questions because I'm tired. You can read the book and get in touch with me through my email, through my WhatsApp, and I'll answer them. Because what I want is, Kamau Moremi, you are not yet 60, to answer those questions. Do we have African universities or universities in Africa? Shall we allow our institutions to be destroyed? For me, I was not able to cope. I gave up, I surrendered.
She's my big sister. And I'm one of those very few Kenyans who would be among the first to actually read her books when they come out. So if you came to my library at home, I have a very beautiful library, and that library has actually been enriched by Dr. Njeri Kinyanjui. So she's a very generous person. Every now and then, when she was in America, she would actually call me and say that, my brother, I'm coming home. Tell me which book do you want me to bring for you? And I'll tell her, however much that book would cost, should buy and bring it to me. So I've known her as a generous person. She's humble. She carries herself with a lot of grace. but she's tough. When you read her writing, she is tough. Okay? She's a scholar, she's tough. A scholar who situates knowledge from the African perspective. She challenges Western epistemologies. And I think to summarize what everybody has said here, I would actually recommend a book. You know that famous African professor of history, Professor Toyin Falola at the University of Texas. There's a book he wrote, it's called Decolonizing Knowledge. That is exactly what Dr. Njeri Kinyanjui does. He writes from a historian's point of view. She does it from a developmental studies point of view, but it is just decolonizing knowledge, that we don't have to rely all the time on Western epistemology. So my big sister, thank you very much. And we have the archive of her books at Kenya Broadcasting Corporation.
Yes. Thank you very much, Pascaline. Dr. Kinyanjui, I need to say hello to you first before I give you the gift. And being a literature student, I think somebody saw the reason why, as an alumni, I should be the one giving you this gift. And we just don't want to give you the gift. We want you to live here looking like the real African support system. Yes. So we have a few things here from the alumni. We have a cape. We have a cape which we want to give you. It's not a graduation cape, but it's a real African informal cape. And so that's for the rest of our colleagues. Also, we have a Masai shuka. We don't want to just give you and you go home with it. We want to make sure that you live here looking like a real African. Yeah. I don't want to repeat what I said. The academicians and the seriousness. The light part of the heart. The one that I can't have to be out. The symbol of what she really wanted to see in the complex. Haven't you seen how we have matched it? So it's her character. Thank you. Joseph? Uh-huh. Okay, Daktari has asked me to acknowledge Joseph Gitau, if you are here. Gitahi, and Paul Homa. Can you kindly come here and just say one word? Just come in front here, we take a picture with you. Alumni, please come over because these are...
Still have more gifts.
Oh, there's another last gift.
There is a gift to soothe the scars on the feet. You go to the spa.
Okay, alumni, you can come here, and the last two guests can come over for the pictures.
Okay, great, and thank you very much.
Please come to the picture.
Okay, I think for us, and I can say I'm very privileged to also be here. Daktari, we are your product, the alumni. Those who don't understand you, let them ask us. We understand you very well. And you are happy? I think we are giving you flowers when you deserve them. So I won't say much, but I think you touched many lives. Many lives, actually in millions, if not thousands, from your work up to now. Yeah? And I echo Mudhamaki that this can even be done in a, like Kasarani, and you can't even fit there.